Hey, it is 12 noon on Friday, which means it's time for this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Christopher. The show is brought to you every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every week to help you mastermind to grow your real estate business. And a big part of being able to grow your business and really just growing yourself is investing in your future. You know, there's no time like the present. You know, right now is the best time to invest in your future. If you put investing in your future off until your future, kind of an endless cycle there. So that's what we're talking about today, how you can invest in your future every single day. And I'm not just talking about money. That one's kind of obvious. Yeah, you put money into some investment and you've invested for your future. No, I'm not talking about investing money in your future. I'm talking about all the other ways it is that you can invest in your future. For your wealth, of course, that's pretty important, but for your health, for your overall well-being, for your life, just overall investing in your future. So that's what we're talking about today. I'm really excited to bring this show to you. I'm John Carissimo. You're watching State of Real Estate.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Christopher. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we're coming to you live to help you mastermind to grow your real estate business. So today we're talking about investing in your future. How is it that you invest in your future? Well, I mean, there's the money thing. You know, there's a whole business that is built around financial investments, a whole industry built around financial investments and getting you to invest in your future, getting you to spend some money today. So in theory, you have more money tomorrow. And look, that's all well and good. That's all well and good. But let's talk a little about ROI. ROI, or return on investment. So what is your ROI? And as we talk about these different things today, talk about the money, talk about the health aspect, talk about the career aspect, talk about the business aspect, and all these other ways it is that you can be investing in your future, it's all going to come back to the return you're getting on your investment, because that's really the important part. If you're not getting any sort of return on your investment, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? Why are you wasting your money if you don't have a positive return on your investment? So just to give you an idea, just in case this is new to you, for calculating this out, we won't spend too much time on this here because it is a fairly simple calculation. But let's say that you invest, we'll say $100,000. If you get a 10% return on your investment, that gives you $110,000. So that 10%, that returns you $10,000 there. 10% of $100,000, $10,000. So overall, when you walk away from this, you've got $110,000, which, even if this is happening over just the course of 1 year, a $10,000 income isn't anything that's gonna, I mean, if this is what you're relying on for maybe some sort of retirement income for $10,000 a year, it's hard to make $10,000 a year last. And I mean, we can't dip back into this original investment because then our returns are going to diminish over time. So at $100,000, and then really this is the question, how much money do you need to invest? Let's say it's not $100,000 that you're going to invest. Let's say it's $1 million you're going to invest. Well, now we're talking about a return of $100,000 at a 10% return on investment. So now, if you're getting $100,000 a year, that's a pretty decent investment. That's a lot better than just $10,000 a year. You're probably not going to be able to live on $10,000 a year at all. It's way below the poverty line. But with $100,000 a year, I mean, you're not going to have a crazy retirement, but you'll absolutely be able to survive on $100,000 a year. Then that isn't even factoring in inflation and all that. But now that's assuming that you're getting a 10% return on investment annually. And the issue here is most investments don't return 10%. Even a 1% ROI. For some investments is considered a strong return on investment. You know, look at the interest rate that your savings account is paying you. Savings account really isn't much of an investment at all. It's just a checking account that has a slight hedge against inflation, but probably isn't even outpacing inflation. Because the interest rate you might be getting in your savings account is maybe 0.25% of interest, so not even a full percent, maybe only 0.25% of interest. And now what does this do to our ROI? What is 1% of the $1 million? Well, now we're back to $10,000. We're back to $10,000 now at a 1% return on investment. And that's, that strong investment. So even with you starting off at $1 million, if you're only getting a 1% return on investment, and that wasn't a big difference in numbers, 1 to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. It took me less than 10 seconds to count to 10 to get to that number. I'm not talking about huge differences in these numbers here, but the impact of those numbers is huge. Because going from a 1% to a 10%, that turns your $10,000 into $100,000. So that's a huge difference. We already established that $10,000 a year. And look, let's back this back down to $100,000 that you have to invest. And now we're talking about $1,000. What's that $1,000 a year going to do? And if that's supplemental, I mean, I wouldn't turn it away. But why take that when you've got other options? Maybe you don't have $100,000 to invest. Maybe you only have $10,000 to invest. So now that $1,000 is just $100 with a 1% return on investment. Maybe you don't even have $10,000 to invest. Maybe you only have $1,000. Now that 1% return on your investment is $10. So you see here how we keep shrinking and shrinking down. So how do we get to that point? How do we get to that point of having $100,000 or having that $1 million so we could have a decent return on our investment? But again, even when you get to $1 million, so you really got to factor in both these parts, the capital it is that you're investing and the rate of return it is that you're getting on this. Because even with a 1% ROI, even with $1 million, that's still only $10,000. Which annually, I mean, that's not going to be enough. That's not enough that's great for supplemental income, but we're not even talking about $1,000 a month here. If it's $10,000 a year, that's less than $1,000 a month. So and that's on $1 million. $1 million sounds like this great big thing until we take 1% of that and only find out it's only $10,000. So it's great if you could accumulate $1 million, but that's really the question. What it is that you're doing to accumulate that $1 million in the first place. Or look, let's start out smaller. Rather than accumulating the $1 million, how do we just get to that point of $10,000? How do we get to $10,000? How do we get to $10? How do we get any money coming in? How do we get $1,000 coming in, let alone $10,000? Because look, if you've got, again, the $1,000 at a 1% return on investment, we're talking about $10. And look, I might be going overkill on this, but it's so important that you understand the impact of these zeros, of adding and taking away these zeros. Because that 1%, that's not going to get you anything. If we double that to 2%, where's that going to take us? To $20. If we get a 10% return on our investment, on $1,000. So only $100, which that's great if you're able to get $100 on 1,000. But now what? How frequently, how much volume can you have? How many times can you do this again and again and again? Because the more times it is you could do this, really that's going to be increasing your ROI. What if I were to say, and this is the game that we're playing here. So at our 1% ROI on $1,000, that's $10. But what if we make that 10%? Well, okay, again, that's $100. But what if we make that a 100% ROI? Well, now we're doubling our money. Now we're talking. Now we're getting into something. You've heard that expression, double your money. Well, that's where you've got to get a 100% ROI. Well, let's say if we're going to get a 1,000 time ROI. Now what are we doing with our $1,000? We're turning it into $10,000. What about if we get a 10,000 time return on our investment? Now we're talking about $100,000. So now we're really starting to make some progress. We're really starting to move here. But look, you go call up any financial advisor in the world, and you tell them, hey, yeah, I want to know what investments you have that will get me a 10,000 time return on investment. They might laugh at you. They might say, oh, well, what do you mean by 10,000% ROI? That's ridiculous. I could maybe get you 1 or 2%, maybe 3%, maybe if I'm really, doing some risky investments, maybe 5 or 6%, but not a 10,000% return on investment. But now how do you do that to your money? How do you take that $1,000 and turn it into $100,000? Well, we got to start out with the smaller numbers here. So maybe taking away 1 0 and getting us now to $10,000. Could we do that? Well, let's talk about how we could do that. How do we get a 1,000 time return on your investment? So we call our financial advisor and we say, hey, I'm looking to get a 10,000% return on my investment. They laugh at us. They say, oh, 10,000%. What did you? What were you taking this morning? What were you drinking? Are you of sound mind even? What makes you think you're going to get a 10,000% return on investment? Oh, you say, okay. How about 1,000%? Look, you're not getting it. Let me tell you what we could do. We could get you 1 or 2% here. Really, 1 or 2%? What are we paying you for to get 1 or 2%? And then you tell them you got $1,000 to invest. They'll probably still have some product for you. But look, at these small levels, you don't even get into the good investments until you've got at least $100,000 to invest. And even then, you still don't even have the best investments. The people that get the best investments are the ones that have over $1 million to invest in a single investment. But I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying you're not there yet. Unless you have $1 million right now to invest in those good investments, or even $100,000, you're not there yet. You're not going to be able to get to the point where you're getting those high returns on your investment. So how do we get, thinking outside of the financial space, outside of the space of the financial planner, how is it that we get at least just let's start out with a 1,000 time return on investment. Then we'll talk about how we could turn that into a 10,000% return on our investment. So we got $1,000. We're trying to turn that into 10. How do we 10x our money? How do we get 10 times that? It's not going to be through an investment, at least not an investment through some sort of financial services. It's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your business. If there's tons of businesses out there where that business can take $1,000 and turn it into $10,000. That's absolutely possible. That is almost an expectation in business. But in an investment, so you got to know the right channel it is that you need to be directing your attention to. And that's what you need to worry about first. Not where you're going to take your $1,000, Because even with a 10% return on investment, which would be a crazy high return on investment for a financial investment, for a financial product, even that 10% is only going to get you $100. You're not ready for the investment track yet. You're not ready for that investment. You can be, but you got to get to the point where you got enough money to invest where it actually makes a difference in your investment portfolio. So you've got to focus your attention not on what you could do with your money, but what you could do with yourself. Or if you've already got a business, what you can do with your business to take it to that level where you're getting a 10-time return on your investment, where you're getting a 1,000% ROI. So that's the question you need to ask. How do you get that ROI? And look, just doing this math, just running the numbers will show you what the costs are and how you get to that there. So let's say that we'll use the real estate example. You know, we're a real estate school. This is State of Real Estate. How do you get $10,000? Well, we're going to work this in reverse here. You want to get $10,000. How do we get that? Well, if we have some sort of commission split with our broker, let's say we get 70% of our commission. We get 70% of our commission, so we're going to divide this now by, and we're going to work backwards here because that's what we're doing. This is our end goal. We got to trace our way backwards through the maze. So we're going to divide this by 70%, 0.70. And we take 10,000, divide that by 70%, or whatever your commission split is with your broker. And if it were 70%, that means we need to have gross commission. So we've got your commission there's our rate. And the gross commission income, the GCI, or gross commission income, is $14,285 and some change, but we'll just leave it at $14,285. So that's what the total commission check needs to be. You get 70% of that, you walk away with 10 grand. Now, to get to that $14,285 gross commission income, we're going to now we got to find out how much house we need to sell, how much property we need to sell, how much real estate we need to sell. And let's say we've got a 3% commission. So 3% commission, we're going to divide by that, and that's our commission rate. Really, that's our split rate. So we take our $14,285 and divide that by a 3% commission, and that is $476,166 in sales. Which, how do we get to that? How do we sell $476,166 in sales? Well, you sell one property that's $476,166 at a 3% commission rate. You're going to have $14,285 coming to the brokerage. Maybe you've got a 100% split where your broker doesn't take any percentage of your commission and you keep that whole $14,285. But as we talked about before in State of Real Estate, that's not the way to go as a new agent because you need the support of your broker. So that's where you want to find one that has a commission split, where they're counting on you selling property in order for them to make money, because then they'll be playing on your team essentially, more so than just being a broker that doesn't get any money off your commission. So if they're taking 30% of that and you get 70% of that, that gets you your 10 grand. Well, maybe you're a little intimidated by selling a $500,000 house. It's all right. You don't have to sell a $500,000 house. We could sell two. Take the 476, divide this out by 2. We could sell two $238,000 houses. Maybe that's still, that's, I don't know if I could sell a $238,000 house. That's a below average house in Hillsborough County. Average is about $280,000, so that's below average. Well, what about 4? We could do 4 $119,000 houses. So you got to know what it is that you need to do. Any one of these will get you that 10 grand with these numbers and figures that we've used here. You could sell one house for $476,000, two houses for $238,000, or four houses for $119,000. Now you get down into these lower price points, and realtors don't always get excited on this, because on that $119,000, if we take a 3% commission rate on that, and then split that 70%, you're only getting about $2,500. But $2,500 times 4 will get you the $10,000. So it's a matter of volume. If you're going to drop the price it is that you're selling in, you just need to get more volume. And this is the numbers, these are the calculations you need to do to know what it is you need to do. If you're just going out there trying to sell something, if you're just trying to, you're like, well, let me just start with selling one thing, and you just focus on selling this one thing and go, okay, great, you sold that one thing, but you only got $2,500, which is still a 250% ROI, but we don't want 250%, we want 10,000%. So we've just got to do that 4 times, which if we're doing that across a year, then we've just got to sell a house like this once every 3 months. Now, if you're trying to make real estate your full-time profession, you probably want to make more than 10 grand a year. So how do we take this from $10,000 to $100,000? How about that? 100,000? Throw another zero on there. So that means we need to sell 10 $476,000 houses, 20 $238,000 houses, and 40 $119,000 houses. You do that with a 70% commission rate, that'll get you your $100,000. So this is the math you need to know how to do, because you've got to know the expectation. If you're just trying to sell one house, you're not going to make $100,000, because one house, depending what that price point was, here it's $10,000 you'll make, here it is $5,000 that you'll make, here it's $2,500 that you'll make. So selling one house isn't going to get you to $100,000. Selling one $476,000 house isn't going to get you to $100,000. That'll only get you to 10. But you do that 10 times, now you got your 100 grand. And that gives you your split rate in there. Maybe you start producing some stuff and you're going to renegotiate with this with your broker, or go find a broker where maybe you get to keep all that commission, because once you know what you're doing, that's why 100% brokerages exist. These brokerages that are designed where you pay some sort of monthly fee or annual fee and you get to keep all of your commission, that's designed for agents that know what they're doing, and they don't need that support system of the broker. So if you're dealing in $119,000 houses, you need to sell 40 of them. So that doesn't mean, oh, well, why would I want to sell 119,000? Because there's a lot more of those properties available. These houses will sell quicker, these lower priced properties. I want to go ahead and draw out a pyramid here for you. And this is the pyramid of affordability. So the largest part of this pyramid is the low dollar amount. The most amount of people are going to be able to afford the cheapest houses. It doesn't mean they necessarily want that house, but they'd be able to afford it. Now you go up in price, there's less people that can afford it. You go up in price again, there's even less people that can afford it. You go up in price again, less people that can afford it. And then up here at the top, this is where the least amount of people can afford it. So what that means is at these higher levels, not only is there higher dollar signs, but there's higher time. You go down here, these are the properties that are going to sell the quickest, because not only are people looking at these properties for a home potentially, but they're also looking at them as an investment. So when I say in order to get $100,000 with a 3% commission rate and the 70% commission split, that you've got to sell 40 $119,000 properties, that might sound daunting, but once you start to get in a rhythm about it and you know what to do, you're going to find that those properties will sell quickly when they're priced appropriately. Because not only, again, do you have homeowners looking at them, but you also have investors looking at them because now you're within that price point where there's that most affordability. And those, again, will sell the quickest. They'll be an easier transaction. You just got to do it more often. You get up into the higher price points, and maybe you find yourself the happy medium. Maybe you really like dealing in the low price points, and you really got a system down where you can crank those babies out quickly. Then that's where you need to be. If you're all over the place here, that's okay, but you got to do the math. You got to know what it is that you're doing and what those calculations are going to end up being that will get you that dollar amount it is that you're looking for at the end. But you've got to plan this. You've got to at least know the numbers. You've got to know what it is that you're striving for. If you don't have the direction to tell yourself that you need to sell 40 properties, because selling 40 properties in a year, that sounds like, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of properties I got to sell. But what are we going to do? We're going to break that down to how many it is that you got to sell a month. So if it's per year, and let's put the dollar amount here because we'll break this down for each one of these here. So we got our dollar amount here. So at $120K, $120,000 per year, we need 40 properties. 40 properties it is that we need to sell. But what is that per month? Well, we take that 40, divide it out by 12. We need 3.3 a month. What is that, a week? Well, assuming there's, and then these numbers will be slightly off here because there's not always 4 weeks in a month, but we'll just call it 4 in a month. 3 divided by 4, 0.75 a week. And then that starts to make sense because if we need 40 a year, if we just go 40 and divide that out now by 52, 0.769. So you'll be slightly off if you're shooting for 3/4 of a closing a week. But look, the point here is you want to just round these things up because you'll maybe have some deals that fall through. So rather than, selling 3.3 a month, maybe you're focusing on 4 a month and 1 a week. Now that's a pretty heavy pace. That's a pretty heavy pace, especially for somebody new in real estate. So if we want to get to that $100,000, maybe we look at a home that's closer to average price. We double that. We go up to that $240,000 price point. Well, at that point, we only need 20 a year to hit $100,000 with our 3% commission rate and our 70% commission split. So we only need 20 a year there, which how many is that a month? Well, we take 20, divide that up by 12, 1.6, but we're just going to round that up to 2. Just going to round that up to 2 because, again, we want to shoot higher. Because, look, are you going to come back to me and complain, well, look, I tried to get 2 a month. I only needed 1.67, and I ended up selling 2 a month like you told me, and I made too much money. You come later, you make too much money and come complain to me. I'd be happy to hear your complaints when you're complaining to me about you're making too much money. That's why you want to set this bar higher. Worst case scenario, you're going to make too much money. Darn. Look, if you don't want to make too much money, then call it 1.67 and confuse yourself because you're like, well, how do I close 0.67 in a month? You don't. You try to close 2. Hopefully you do close 2. And you're also keeping track of this as you go deeper into your year. So maybe you have a month where you only close 1. What does that mean you got to do next month? You've got to close 3. You only close 1 the next month as well. What does that mean the next month? Now you've got 4 that you need to close. And this is where you're able to catch yourself and make these adjustments when you're looking at this on a daily or a weekly basis. Here, we only need 0.5, or if we're talking about every 2 weeks, we need 1, which going back to the weekly one, we need 2. So that's if we're looking at this every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, we need to close on a property. Now again, that is ambitious if you're brand new to real estate, being able to do that much volume. So what if we still want to make $100,000 though? Well, again, we look at those higher price point properties. So we go back to the $480,000 property. The $480,000 property, now we only need to sell 10 of those a year. How many do we have to sell a month? Less than 1. We're going to call it 1, though, because we want to make more money. We want to make too much money, so we're going to round up that 0.8 or whatever it is to 1. And then how many is it that we've got to sell a week? We don't. We don't have to sell that many a week. We just have to close 1 a month. If we could close 1 a month, we're going to surpass the $100,000 if we're dealing in $480,000 properties. Now, this is the problem I probably see more often than not with new agents. New agents, so often, they'll get their license and they're scared to get into this $480,000 property. Oh, I don't know what to do. That's such an expensive property. It is an expensive property, much more expensive than the $120,000. But let me ask you this. Would you rather sell 10 properties or would you rather sell 40 properties? Oh, well, 10, that's much more manageable. Absolutely. You're 100% correct. It is much more manageable. And as a new agent, what do you think you're more likely to do? Are you more likely to sell 10 properties or are you more likely to sell 40 properties? 10. 10 is even a stretch. So you've got to set your sights higher. Whether you're going to set your sights higher on the number of transactions and try to go for 40, or you're going to set your sights higher on the sale price it is that you're going to with 480. Look, we got to take a quick commercial break. Stick with us. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching State of Real Estate.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. So before we went on break, we're talking about, as a new agent, or really as any agent, anybody that's trying to get to that $100,000 mark, because that's the goal it is that we've been shooting for here, to get us the $10,000 return on investment from that $1,000 it is that we're starting out with here. Now you might be asking, how much is this going to cost you to sell 10 properties? Well, I mean, if we're talking about buyers, it's going to cost you time. Maybe, driving around a little bit, you're going to have some gas expense. But look, if you've got $1,000, you absolutely could close 10 buyers. You could close 10 sellers as well. You just got to know what it is that you're working with and what it is. What's more important is not managing your expenses. Because does it matter if you've got to spend $1,000 if you're getting $100,000? No. Does it matter if you've got to spend $10,000 if you're getting $100,000? No. You're still coming out on top. You're still making more money. And $100,000, that's a lot of money to make in a year. Maybe you want to make $1 million a year. Just throw another zero on all these. So this is what you've got to be. This is the math you're going to do. And this is so important when you're trying to get to this point. So again, we're using this example of $100,000. I know a lot of people out there that would say, oh, I'd love to make $100,000. If I could make $100,000 a year, how much could that change your life? What is it that you'd be able to do that you can't do currently if you've got $100,000 a year coming in? And you might say, well, John, what about my time? What about my time if I'm going to be, well, yeah, if you want to make $100,000 and you've never done it before, it's going to take some time. So you've got to understand that, especially when you're starting out, you've got to invest sweat equity. You've got to invest your time in this here. But look, how do we spend that time most wisely? Because these transactions, a $480,000 house, it might take a little bit longer than a $120,000 house. Maybe there's a little bit more it is that you're doing. It will take a little bit longer to close these properties because, again, there is less affordability in these properties. But there's a ton of people who can afford a $480,000 house. $280,000 about is what the average is currently in Hillsborough County. So this is above average. It's about $200,000 above average, but I'm not telling you to go sell a $4.8 million house. But let's say if we did, let's say if we sell a $5 million house, let's take that to $4.8 million. Let's put that in black here so you guys can see it. Let's take it to $4.8 million. So we take it to $4.8 million. Now how many houses do we need to sell a year to get $100,000? One. How many is that a month? A week, a day. We just got to sell one. Now this, I'm not going to tell you that, yeah, go out there and just get a $5 million house, because now you've went way to the other end of the spectrum. You went from the houses that sell all the time to the houses that sometimes can take years to sell. And that happens with these higher price point properties. Higher price point properties will take much longer to sell than a property with a lower price point. And it takes a lot more to sell. There's a significant increase in the amount of, because when there's more time, there's more effort that it's going to take. So look, yeah, that'd be cool just to sell one property, make $100,000. You know, maybe you're dealing in commercial. That's where you have a lot more of these transactions. If that's what you're looking for, you want to just sell one property and make $100,000, that's where you want to definitely look at the commercial side of things, because that's where these bigger transactions are. A $5 million house, it's a lot more difficult to come by than a $120,000 house, or even the $480,000 house. Again, I'm not, telling you that this is a $5 million house. This is only $500,000, and there's a lot of people out there that can afford a $500,000 house. Way more than 10. You only need to get 10 of them. You only need to get 10 of those sales to get the $100,000 in gross commission income. So, that, and again, the focus here, because you might be saying, well, what is it going to cost me to sell these $480,000 10 times? It's going to cost you mostly time. That's what it's really costing you, especially when you're at this transition point of trying to start your business or really grow your business. If you're just trying to get to $100,000, it's going to cost you time. That's what it's going to cost you. But now, so let's say we're going to pick this 10. And this is the math you want to do. Because if you're trying to make $100,000 and you haven't done that yet, you got to ask your questions. Can you sell 4 houses a month? Oh, 4 houses a month, that's a lot of houses. I got to sell 40 in a year. Really, that'd be 48 in a year if we're selling 4 a month. Really 52 if we're doing 1 a week. So depending on how it is, we're doing this math here. I don't know who made our calendar, but it doesn't make sense with numbers all the time. You got to do this math differently. And that's why you really want to know these numbers and track these numbers every single month. But again, let's focus on this here, because this is doable. This is absolutely doable. 10 houses, 1 a month, that's absolutely doable. And I'm factoring in a 70% commission split. I'm factoring in a 3% commission. I'm not even saying go charge a crazy high commission. I'm not saying do a crazy high house. But now, how do we tap into these houses? How do we find buyers? How do we find sellers in this $480,000 market, in that $480,000 range? Well, there's a few ways we go about doing this. So let's just list out some ways. We could advertise, and that's really vague. That's really general. And this is the point of planning this out. This is the point of doing this business planning exercise here. Because if we say, oh, well, we're going to advertise, well, how are you going to advertise? Oh, gee, that's a good question. I don't know, maybe Zillow. Maybe I'll make a Facebook ad. Really, what are you going to do with your Facebook ad? Are you going to promote a post? Are you going to pay $5 to boost a post? Because that's not going to sell you 10 $480,000 properties. So advertising is expensive. If you've got $1,000 to spend, it's going to be extremely difficult with $1,000 to get 10 clients at any price point. Because that means that you're getting a closed deal for only $100. You can't even buy a lead for that much on Zillow. Actually, I think you can. If you get into some of the, like these $120,000 zip codes where the average sale price is lower like that, you absolutely can probably get a lead for $100. But when you're paying for services like that, like Zillow or Realtor.com or Trulia or Homes.com or any of these websites that sell leads to you, those are pricey. Those are pricey leads, but that's because they do the work for you. So advertising is a great way to scale your business, but it's not the best way to start. Advertising is for scaling, not for starting. Because if you've only got $1,000 to invest, you put that $1,000 in advertising, maybe you get one. But let's say we did that. Let's say we took $1,000, dumped it into some advertising, and we get one sale on that. What are we making on that one sale? Remember, that was $10,000 from that math we did earlier. That $480,000 house at a 3% commission rate with a 70% split with our broker, we're getting $10,000 off of that. So now if we're just trying to take that $10,000 and run, then we're out of money to advertise. We can't advertise anymore. But what if we're to take another $1,000 and put that back in? take $1,000 out of that $10,000 and put it back in. Now, we could start to build up this cycle and grow this into something. Now, when we're doing that, though, it's going to factor in time more so as well. Because that $1,000, that doesn't guarantee you're going to get a sale. Now, if you're a more established agent and you know how to sell, you know how to close deals, you know how the real estate transaction process works, you just haven't been able to hit that $100,000 mark, that's where this is an exercise in. This is an exercise in getting you to that $100,000 mark. And that maybe advertising is the answer then. But if you don't know how to sell, if you don't know, maybe you do know how to sell, but you're not familiar with the real estate transaction process, deals fall through. And if you took that $1,000 and put it in, and maybe you had some deals, some potential deals, but they fall through, now what? If you're out of money to advertise, now how do you get business? So the more effective method I recommend for at least starting out, until you know what to do, is going to be prospecting. And here's how advertising is different than prospecting. Advertising is an indirect strategy. Advertising is indirect because you're not out there on Facebook every time an ad pops up saying, hey, give me a call. Look at this house I could sell. You're not the one popping up in those ads. It's maybe some recording of you. Maybe it's a picture. Maybe it's some text. So that's indirect. Sending out letters, sending out postcards, doing Google pay-per-click advertising. All advertising is an indirect strategy. Which is good for scaling, but not good for starting. Now, prospecting is good for starting, but it's not good to scale. There's only so many doors you could knock on. There's only so many phone calls you could make. There's only so many face-to-face interactions you could have. And if you're relying on prospecting for your business, that's a great way to start because all it's going to cost you is your time. But as you start to get more money, you're going to increase your income. What you're going to run out of is time. So you've got to make these shifts. It's like that scale, the scales of law or whatever that's called, where you got these scales that go up and down. You're always going to have to prospect because with prospecting, maybe that's not cold prospecting, maybe that's hot prospecting or warm prospecting. People that you have advertised to and you need to turn them into a client. So even when you are advertising, you're still going to need to prospect. It's just easier because they're already warmed up to you because you've advertised to them. They're coming to you rather than you going after them. But if you never learned how to prospect, doesn't matter how much money you spend in advertising if you can't convert the leads into clients. And that's what prospecting teaches you. Having these face-to-face interactions. And not only can that be used to convert a lead that you got from advertising, but it can be used to take somebody completely cold, unfamiliar with you whatsoever. Maybe you're going door knocking, maybe you're doing cold calling, maybe you're doing an open house. And you're just talking to the people at the open house. That's a really easy way to prospect if you don't like to prospect. Holding open houses. Now you got to hold a lot of open houses because you really only do those on the weekend. You can do them during the week, but usually don't get great turnout with that. So the prospecting is so essential when you're trying to start, when you're trying to get to that point. Now when you're making $100,000, that's where you could invest more. You could dump more into the advertising because you already know how to close those leads. If you could close a cold lead, you absolutely could close a warm or a hot lead. And that's what you're really getting in the advertising. They don't completely not know you. They see in your ads and maybe they're giving you a call. And you're just trying to convert them now. That's significantly easier, but it still requires some knowledge and an understanding of how to prospect, how to actually close them. So this is the scales you've got to balance. Starting out, trying to get to that $100,000 mark. And look, maybe your mark's a little bit lower than that to when you start shifting into advertising. Maybe it's a little bit higher than that. I don't know. This is your business. I'm just showing you how to do these numbers. It's up to you to do these calculations, to do these numbers, to know what your responsibilities are, what your obligations are. If you want to make $100,000 with all those numbers we worked through, your obligation is to close one property a month. So when you don't want to go make a phone call, when you don't want to go knock on somebody's door, when you don't want to hold an open house, when you don't want to invest in your future, and then you don't hit your goal, you go a month and you don't get a closing that month. Now what do you got to do next month? You got to get 2 closings. You got to close 2 $480,000 properties. Hey, maybe you're finding the $480,000s are a little hard to come by, so you jump down to $240,000. There shouldn't be any excuse there because you're going to have a significantly larger pool of buyers and a significantly larger pool of properties that are available at your disposal. But when you're missing the mark, when you're not getting these numbers, when you're not getting the 1 closing a month, you could always go back to prospecting. You could always go back to holding an open house, knocking on some doors, making some phone calls. You don't want to do that? Then yes, you can advertise, but understand that you're still going to have to convert the leads that come in. Now, you could pay places to do that. Zillow's got a new program now. They've been calling me nonstop. I used to advertise with Zillow back in the day. And, you know, I was a past customer of them, so they're like, oh, we could get him. He's a past customer. He's warm to us. They're attacking their warm people. They do go after cold people as well, but I haven't answered a single one of their calls. They've been calling me for like 6 months because they know that the fortune is in the follow-up, that making these calls. And this is Zillow. This is a multi-million, if not billion-dollar, I don't know how exactly much they're worth. They've got people prospecting, making phone calls. I can't tell you if I've ever seen or the last time I've seen a Zillow ad. I cannot recall an ad. And that's what's also, maybe they are advertising to me, but it takes 7 to 10 times of you seeing an advertisement. Because we're bombarded so much every single day by advertisement, it takes 7 to 10 times for somebody to see an advertisement to make recognition. So maybe I have been seeing Zillow ads, but they haven't been doing it enough. They haven't been spending enough, so I'm not having any recollection or any memory of it whatsoever. So this multi-million-dollar company, they're still prospecting to get business. And why? Because it's cost-effective, because it works. And even though I say this isn't scalable, it's not scalable for you, but it is scalable if you start to build out a team. There's only so many calls you can make. There's only so many doors you can knock on. There's only so many open houses you can hold. But you start building out a team, you start bringing on other agents, then you can scale prospecting. Prospecting can give you such a higher percentage of ROI than advertising. Advertising, you will have a low dollar amount ROI. Prospecting has a high dollar amount ROI. But advertising also has a low, or really a high, I should say. It's a low amount of time you're putting in, but it has a high return on investment on time. So if time's your problem, if you don't have time to prospect, that's where advertising is the answer. But if you got time, you just don't have any money, this has a high dollar amount ROI because you're really not spending much money at all, but it has a low time ROI compared to advertising at least. And it's really not just one or the other. Remember, it's the scales. You don't want your scales looking like this or looking like this. You've got to balance them because really it's both of these things that are going to contribute to that $100,000, to the $1 million, to the $250,000, to however much it is that you want to make. It's really all your business is coming from a combination of this. Yes, you've got to worry about the expenses somewhat, but that's secondary to the money that's coming in. If you don't have enough money coming in, that's when your expenses become a problem. If you've got $10,000 in expenses, but only have $10,000 worth of income, are you making any money? No, you're hitting zero. But let's say you still have $10,000 of expenses, but you got $100,000 coming in. Are you making any money? Absolutely. Even if you only got $20,000 coming in. Now that $10,000 of expenses isn't as much of a problem as it was if you're making $10,000. So the answer isn't cutting your expenses. The answer is making more money, closing more sales, doing more volume, either higher prices or higher number of transactions. Look, that's about all the time it is that we've got for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to be back next week with Ask the Instructor. We do that every Wednesdays, and we'll have another episode of State of Real Estate next Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you got questions about getting your real estate license, maybe for post-licensing, maybe for continuing education, give us a call. The phone number is 813-333-2676. Again, that's 813-333-2676. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way it is that they can. But look, one takeaway I do want to give you for this episode today. And look, if you need to go back and rewatch this, remember, you go to tampaschool.com/success. You can rewatch all of our episodes of State of Real Estate. Because knowing this math, knowing how to do this, and planning out what it is that you're going to do in your business will set you up for success. Even if you don't hit your goals, having a plan of what these goals actually are and how you're going to achieve them, you're going to come closer to those goals than if you're just going in and winging it without any planning, without any goal setting, with just hoping for the best. And look, if you want this is just a small example of what you learn in our post-licensing course. We've got an extensive portion of the course dedicated to business planning and focusing on what it is, not just the dollar amounts, but now how is it that you actually get these dollar amounts? How is it that you get 10 clients that result in 10 sales? How many contracts do you need? How many appointments do you need? How many leads that you need? And basically reverse engineering this whole process into a plan that you're able to now execute on a daily basis. Because if you only need to sell 10 properties in a year, only one a month, then what do you do every day? Do you just sit around and wait for the month and wait to close a property? No, you don't. You got to get out there. You got to prospect. You have to advertise. You have to do these activities that are going to get you business. But just like setting your sights on the correct numbers for how many transactions and what dollar amount it is that you need to sell them at, you also need to set those same sights for how much money it is you're spending advertising, how much time you're spending prospecting, how much of the combination of those two together, and then how you're actually converting this and really tracking this whole process from the first time they ever hear about you to you following up with them after the sale. So that's in post-licensing. Check out postflorida.com. That's postflorida.com. We've got a whole breakdown of everything it is. Not even everything. Most of the stuff, some of the really important things that you're going to learn in post-licensing. That's at postflorida.com. We've got an online course. We've got a classroom course. Business planning is so essential. If you haven't done a business plan yet, you need to do it. Look, if you've already taken post-licensing before, come take post-licensing again with us so you can create this business plan, so you could plan for your success, so you could figure out how it is you're going to make the amount of money it is that you want to make. But look, that's all the time we've got for today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.
Have you seen what's going on in Tampa?
If you're looking to get in on the real estate action that's going on in Tampa right now, we're who you need to talk to. We can help you get your real estate license, start your real estate career. We're here to assist you for the life of your real estate career. Give us a call. Phone number is 813-928-0106, or check us out online at tampaschool.com.
Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com.
Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate.